I guess we all saw over the weekend or before, is Claude launching Claude Design, which is a super interesting thing. And I think there's a few interesting things about this. One was the fact that I guess you probably saw that Anthropic's CPO used to be on the board of Figma, and he had to resign like 3 days before they announced it because there's a little bit of a conflict of interest now. But I guess they all kind of knew that was happening. But I mean, I guess this is another example of Anthropic kind of just expanding and leveraging what its tool can do into new areas. But the thing that was interesting about me, I don't know if you guys have used it much, but it's interesting the way they implemented this. So it hasn't been implemented in Claude Desktop. It's been implemented purely as a web tool. I guess that's because it's easier to roll it out and test it as well as in beta. Um, and it's interesting in that it works in a different way than some of the other tools. It's a bit more graphical. I would say obviously it's prompt driven, but you kind of got this canvas, like the Figma Infinite Canvas, where it displays the designs that it's generating. So they're obviously trying some new things here, which they haven't used much before. Um, and I mean, from what I've seen of the use of it, it's pretty good in the most part. It does the sort of usual AI thing of getting you 80 to 90% of good, but having lots of sort of some rough edges around the edges of it, which need to be kind of really thought through from a UX perspective. So there's lots of designers I'm seeing that are saying things like, yeah, it's good, but it's not going to get rid of us just yet. It's, so, well, but JC, you're more of a designer than I am. What do you think?
Well, I've tried out like just until I ran out of tokens. So, uh, but I think so. I think it it is very very interesting. I think it's changing. I think it's adapting to this new shift of design engineers. So as we see, I mean, myself, I come from a design background, and I kind of prompted my way into engineering. So I can see the benefit for that kind of figure. So that hybrid design engineer, because it gives you like a, so you have this canvas as you said, but you also have this file selector, and then it looks a bit like well how Cloud Code could look like. With the file selector, you have your project in there. You can import from GitHub. You can import from an HTML. You can import from anything. So I think it's aiming at that hybrid persona. And for me, what it generates is mind blowing in terms of the design. It's just very really really well constructed. It takes care of the so if you come at the tool at any of the stages like ideation or wireframing or high fidelity design, it does a really great job at like sparring with you. So it asks you the right questions. Of course, this is mostly because of Opus 4.7, I think, but it really takes care of being that companion for you as a designer, and then when you need it for you as a developer. Now, the only thing regarding design that I haven't seen that I don't find as surprising is the variety of designs. So I've tried it with a couple different prompts and for a couple different projects, and what it seems to do is it always defaults to basically this new age kind of minimalist serif font design, like something like a magazine design, which is it looks great, but I haven't seen a lot of variation from that. So
There's one thing I'd add to that that's interesting is that, so I don't know if you ever used it, but when you use the front end design plugin from Anthropic, if you look at the skill behind it, what it does is it says, don't do the usual AI generated design.
yeah,
Do something completely different. And I'm wondering maybe if prompting, using some of those ideas in the prompt in Claude Design might help to kind of say, well, give me three different variations that are extremely different. Because I agree with you in that often the first thing tends to be very similar. It's a lot, it get lovable, and all the apps have got large radiuses and the purple they've got in them. But if you really push it and say, do something you wouldn't normally do, or then you can start to see something
Mm.
unusual come out. So maybe what we'll see is, I'm sure the tool will improve, but maybe there'll be ways of using the right prompts to really drive some of that different behaviors.
Yeah.
If you're seeing it's consistent right now, maybe there's ways of prompting it to push it into a different sort of range of designs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think what I tried doing that. Like I tried to push it to, like being less of a, let's say, defaulty machine, and saying, hey, here's my visual language. Here's the concepts that I care about.
Mhm.
Um, of course, give me some variations of this. Like give me, yeah, like three different variations of this. But all three variations were really similar in the sense that they looked exactly like the marketing assets that you see from Claude Design. Like they're like
Okay,
this
interesting.
beautiful, like magazine
Yeah, yeah,
serif font kind of a landing page or slide decks, or so they all ended up looking really good, really really good, but mostly the same visually.
yeah. And did you try it with a existing design system? Did you put an existing design system in and say using this design system will be something?
Yeah,
Did you see it follow that well? I mean, that's something I haven't really tried myself.
yeah, it followed that well, and then it did follow in the sense that it picked up the things like the colors or the component styles, things like that. But then um, again, it defaulted uh, to me the thing that stood out is like these big titles with the serif font, like they seem to be
Right.
they seem to follow the same combination of fonts for the title and subtitles, like which makes sense. I mean, I do think that they are positioning clearly in a different way than like the lovable or the AI slop, which is like yeah this gradients with the corner radius, and they're on another. I mean, they are clearly different from that, but I wonder if they might be defaulting to just being opposite to that lovable style, and they are gonna keep doing that and not offer a lot of variations, which would be a mistake, I think, or make it less interesting. But I don't know.
What do
Ray,
you?
have you tried it out? Have you had a chance?
I tried out only a little bit. I the I look at these tools and it's like where am I looking for things to be a multiplier, right? And where am I looking for things to add, right? So I'm a guy who really knows data well, right? I think about math well. So I look for the computer to be a multiplier on me in terms of my expertise to go do that even better. Right. I want to express my intent and my ideas, and then it's able to take the thing that I have that's this big and it's able to sort of really distribute that. And then there are things I want to add because those are not my areas of expertise. I want someone else to take care of them, right? So like for what things would I hire a person to do it, right? And for what things am I looking for the tools? I call it robots and bicycles, right? Bicycles that allow me to magnify my own ability, whereas robots, which are going to take responsibility and move it to the side. When I think about issues of say graphic design, even though I was, early in my days as a data scientist, raised by someone who thought a lot about graphic design, like Ed Tufte, it's never really been my long suit. So I look for something to go take it over. So the way I, made use of, Claude Code for doing design stuff was I would go find something that I liked on the web and I say, make things that look like this, right? Go take some screenshots of it and then describe it back and then say, call that system and let's go. Because I wasn't going to win on having the absolute best design, and if people see my stuff, will definitely concur with that. But it's just not where I'm going to focus my attention, right? I want that to be taken care of for me to a level of adequacy, right? So it's not taking away from the part where I'm looking to be excellent. And I think that we can look at these tools through those kinds of lenses, right? You as a designer look at, okay, how does Claude Design help you, you know, express your will, right? For me, I'm looking for Claude Design or something else to take care of design for me so I can go focus on the parts that I'm really good at, right? So you're looking for bicycle, I'm looking for a robot. Whereas, maybe for more back end type concerns, you're looking for a robot and I'm looking for a bicycle.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question, which you originally asked, was like, have I used it? But but this is what got me thinking about to the extent that I have been using it a little bit. In fact, I've got one of the designs that made for me, working off of one of my side projects, which is an AI council. Sort of taking the what the site originally was, and then turning it into this new thing, and it's kind of cool. And actually, what I find it really does well is give me more ideas about what I like, right? Gives me something I can then feed back, say, oh, hey, this looks kind of cool. Would you mind using this now? Right? With the same mode I would have used of going to other websites and saying, hey, I like that thing over there. I go to Claude
Mm.
Design and say, hey, I like that. And then just have, Claude Code go back and execute on it, particularly because Claude Design, at least near as I can tell, isn't super well integrated back into being able to get the flow of the code going again, right? In terms of being able to express itself back into the code base to be able to sort of move on to the next step. Because I don't want to spend time using it. Just like someone who I'd hire, I don't want to spend time, being in their process. I want to
Yeah.
get their results and then have that and then figure out how that feeds back to me. And I think that might sort of lead to us having very different experiences, with it. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was clunky to get data in and get data out,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And it sort of lives in its own little zone, which might be appropriate for research preview. But meant that like for me to hire it basically as that outsourcer was more work for me than hiring, say, Cloud Code to do it. Although it definitely created some remarkable designs that I hadn't seen before.
So, I mean, using your analogy, I guess then it's not really doing you want it to be a robot and it's not really doing the robot job because it's a bit clunky to get in and out. And I guess from JC's perspective, it isn't really doing the bicycle thing because it's not quite there. So it's kind of, I mean, maybe because it's early, but it's not quite doing either job completely, right? It's not very well integrated. I mean, the thing that for me was interesting when I was looking at it, because I was looking at it from perspective of, okay, you know, with my MCP composing idea is how do you then link it to other things you can then drive off it? You know, how do you pull data in and then do something with it? And it's not, from that perspective, it's not terrible. As far as I can see, the exporting is basically exporting back into Claude is you get a URL of what your output is that it can then pull in and do stuff with. So you can kind of do it, but it's very much a case of copy this link and put it, paste it into your conversation. It's not very slick. But yeah, it's. I guess that's kind of where it is, as you say, in the preview. So it feels like it's got some interesting ideas, but it doesn't really solve anyone's problem completely just yet, right? It seems to be what you guys are saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might be, or at least I'm being like maybe overly critical just to just to make it a bit more interesting. But we're not just gonna repeat whatever they say on the marketing landings or assets. So, but I do think so. One benefit that I did see from just using it like for a couple hours was that it created a good design system and a sound design system based on certain, scattered concepts or elements or UIs or ideas that I had, and I fed it to it and said, "Hey, this is how can we make a design system out of all this?" So that's I think that
Oh, that's
that might
interesting. But
that might reflect how people work and how companies work, right? Like that if you're building a design system from scratch, well, not big companies, but also small or entrepreneurs or small companies, like they have either ideas or elements or different UIs that they've been working on over quite some time, and now they're like, okay, let us build something that we can reuse going forward. So just the fact that it was able to make sense of everything and then ask the right questions to kind of get everything aligned,
Yeah.
that was a really big help. And then it produced a design system that I I still need to see how well it performs over time in Cloud Code, right? Like if I'm to use, because I ported that through that URL, but doesn't seem to be like a full I don't know. I think you can also integrate it in your GitHub, but I haven't tried that out extensively. But I think that would be a really great a really great benefit of using this tool as opposed to just doing things on Cloud Cowork, which for me was doing a great job as well.
That's interesting. That's a good
Well, that's
point, actually.
fascinating.
Because I mean, sorry, Ray, go on.
I was actually hoping that JC could double click on that Claude Cowork observation, right? Because I think that saying that like Claude, that thinking about Claude design as pulling out from Claude Codework
Yeah.
is really useful because Claude Cowork is also super early, super immature, harness for getting work done, and it might be a really useful comparison point. And like, JC, if we could just get like 60 more seconds of like how you do design in Cowork, I think that might give us a lot more clarity as to how to be better thinking about Claude design as well.
Yeah, what I find myself doing these days is I basically go. So my starting point is Cloud Cowork for anything from ideation to actually defining scaffolding,
Mhm.
UIs or defining the UX or user journeys, things like this. So that is my starting point today. And then when I need to be a bit more precise around, um, well, let's say creating a design system and saying, okay, this is the type of font or font combination that we want to be having, or this is the color palette, or this is the overall vibe or feeling of the app. All that is defining Cowork for me because it does a great job at one being that PAL that I can start with, and
Mhm.
also of course it has all the connectors that also Cloud Code has, but it has all the connectors, and it seems like a better or easier place for me to work out everything. So as I was saying, like if we need to pull from different places, Cloud Cowork for me does a better job. Then when everything is, let's say, signed off, and I'm happy with it, I just do this handoff, which I think you've also mentioned, Ray. It's not a really seamless handoff. Like you need to hack your way into handing that off. So I do that handoff to Cloud Code. Basically, what I've learned to do now is I have Cloud Cowork create the different MD files with the instructions and tasks. So then Cloud Cowork just needs to go to these tasks and keep ticking them off as it works through them. And what I was hoping that Cloud Design, um, or where I was hoping Cloud Design could help a bit more than Cloud Cowork was in the design side of things. So that it would need less input from me, less back and forth, basically, and that it would present a better scaffold. Like it would get me like 90% there in terms of the UI user journey. Um, the like thinking about the font styles, like all this is something that I usually spend a lot of time kind of getting right, and it ends up consuming a lot of tokens because there's a lot of back and forth even with Cloud
Yeah.
Cowork.
Well, leaving aside the tokens, right? But the thing about your time, because your time on average is a lot more expensive than the tokens are, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
look at token optimization subsequently, but I think the biggest issue is like being able to cut your time and being able to increase the quality of your output, right? I think that
Yeah.
those would be the two North Stars I'd probably put on it. The Where do you find those friction points? Yourself as a designer, you're using Cowork or you're using Claude Design. You sort of talk about like the going back and forth and finding that you're still, like you say, having that dialogue. Where are you finding the point of friction? Like you say, this is what I want, and it just doesn't do it. Are you finding it sort of hard to figure out how to say what you want because of the disconnect between using natural language and just sort of grabbing a pen and doing it visually? Can you talk a little bit like where those friction points for you as a design professional?
I think the first point would be maybe you pointed that out. I didn't think about it, but just doing that kind of initial sketch um, or that initial wireframing that I used to do by hand as a designer.
Yeah.
It's like that's what you do, and then of course you kind of transition into doing it on Figma or FigJam or any other like this whiteboarding tools.
Yep.
So I think that part actually is the one that I see a friction point for me, and I think it's because it really um, just relies on my natural language. So at times it can be hasted. At times it can be like not clear. It can be that I over trust sometimes the tool or the context it has. So that's definitely one side of the journey where I end up spending way more a lot of cycles like that
Hmm.
I don't see are necessary. And then the other side of that journey that I think ends up consuming a lot of my time would be could be over the transition to Cloud Code. So I have signed off everything on Cloud Cowork. I'm happy with it. It seems like we have an understanding and we are like on the same page. And then when it goes to Cloud Code and I actually see what's implementing, I sometimes see that it missed some of the tasks or some of the, like key screens or key steps in the user journey, things like this. So, or flows or what happens when you tap on a certain button. So I'm expecting everything to be defined
Hmm.
correctly for Cloud Code to pick up. So that time I end up like going back to Cloud Cowork, saying, "Hey, what happened here? Where are we missing?" Ask questions, and then when I kind of nudge it to ask questions, then we can clarify and keep. But that is there's a lot of back and forth in there as well.
Yeah. Toby, what JC was ending on was the bridge over to Claude Code. And there are not that many people on this planet who are expert in the field of going from a design tool into an app relatively seamlessly. But you are. I mean
I wouldn't go get that far. But
that's probably all day long, last 5 years, right? So would I love to get your take on like what you have found to be challenging or meaningful, like from your experience in Bravo, and then like get that carried into your observations about what you see in cloud design.
oh, I mean, I'm trying to think what would be a good answer to that question. I think, well, most of the problems tend to be the kind of connection between the front and the back end, and some of the behaviors are implicit and some are need to be explicit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's where often these things come down. And one of the things that I've been looking at recently is because um, that so much of it needs to be done together that actually often the tools we've used in the past have been things like Xano or Superbase, but you end up with this kind of jarring moving between the two that you have to a simple change in the front end might require massive migration in the back end,
Hmm.
and that is can be a bit annoying. So from an app perspective, one of the things I've been trying to do is bring all that sort of context together, and that's why I've been looking at using Convex. I don't know if you've looked at Convex much
No comment.
as a backend tool, because it's all driven by the software and TypeScript definitions and handling migrations and stuff itself. The model can actually just build things and then it all in TypeScript and everything gets dealt with in the sort of back end side of things. And that for
Hmm.
me has helped kind of bring, so I guess if you think of it from like, design's one piece, front end's one piece, back end's one piece, in the same way that I think JC focus is kind of do that transition from design to front end. I spend a lot of my time thinking about that. Well, a lot of the fights I've had have been during sort of making the back end and front end work together well. And so one of the things I found is that using a tool that can handle that well, and I think, tools like Xano are getting there with using things like MCP and stuff.